Well, it started out with Joe and I smashing heads together because we had aspirations for two different stories, which were the same story, but they were two entirely different perspectives.
Huge learning process right from the beginning. Our research and development phase was crazy.
So this togetherness that we have in the show, this is what we need in the world.
It brought back that conversation and said, these are the people who were here first. These are the people who came after. How did their communities interact? How did they relate? And look at all the cultural parallels they have in common.
Shumka has done dance theater productions for decades, and most of our themes that we pursue are Ukrainian themes from Ukraine. They're either folklore-based or based on legends and history. And we've been asking ourselves lately, what is Canadian about us as a Ukrainian-Canadian dance company, and how relevant are we here, and how can we become more relevant here? And we've been just researching some of those topics, and one really cool thing that we found out about was an event that was put together by Myrna Kostash, a local writer, along with her colleague Sharon Pasula from the University of Alberta.
So what we, in fact, organized was an event that we called Zemlya na Naskoman. And so Nanaskoman means we give thanks. And Zemlya is land or earth in Ukrainian. So we put together 3 exchanges. One was dance, one was storytelling and song, and one was, in fact, an exchange of weaving. And so what's really exciting now, I think, that there's a new generation, the group around Shumka, and it just seems like the right time. And I'm very thankful that there's been a pickup on this thing that Sharon and I initiated, that we're sort of passing this on to a new generation of artists.
Barry Belinsky was one of the people that we had hired at the very beginning of our thoughts on this project to look into some of the maybe themes we might be able to explore and to look at some initial ideas of a libretto, etc. He was really interested in the project as well, so we thought he would be a perfect fit. And the other thing about Barry is that he is not only Cree, but he's also Ukrainian. So that sort of double background of his was something that was very unique to the project as well.
The original part of my contract was to just write an idea. We had a couple objectives. We wanted to do something that really celebrated the women of Shumka, but we also wanted to be a bit satirical about this idea of celebrating both cultures and how bombastic and big and spectacular it has become, and see if we can boil it back down to its roots. And so that idea was actually right out the gate. Avoid trying to speak too much. So like you're gonna speak with your... Yeah, right? Like, yeah, it's like, it's you as opposed to be like, oh my God. Yeah, so just keep it super simple and put it in your body. Yeah.
Joe is our artistic associate in Shumka, so he is somebody that is an artistic leader in the organization. He also has a lot of background in theater with other work that he's done, and we thought he would be a really great fit for the project with Barry.
Awesome. And then, yeah, Marie come on that side, and then replace where Mara's hand is. Yeah, totally.
And the director at that time, John Picklick, had pulled me aside and mentioned that he'd be interested in bringing me on to be a part of sort of the artistic committee. And I was all too eager for something like that.
We begin. We are born in every heart, earth, a drum.
I really do think it'll read better if she looks at it, hands it back to her.
Okay,
and then
compromise then, because they're dancing together, bump, bump, bump. Ayla does take a moment. She like sort of backs away from her, and they're face to face like this. Could she turn back, sort of see her own shawl, and then do this little bit of illustrate the parallel here, and then bring it back,
and then go for the second
and then
shawl?
go for her own?
I think it's just that once she's holding both, I don't know what they mean anymore.
Fair enough.
Right?
Yeah.
She activates both of them, and they lose significance.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. New spots, new partners. 2, 3, 4, 5.
There's a few beats in there that you really want to make sure you're hitting. Big one is like when you're offering this down to her, it's like that's your big plan. It's like I am going to solve your problems. And so like when you go into that first move, is like all the pride of being able to fix the situation. Right? And that way when you're coming into it, there's a little bit of apprehension when you're doing this piece up at the front together, because you're trying it on with her for the first time. So then when you take it and then have that decision that this doesn't feel right, you need to look for something else, is when you're actually, can I see you make that decision? Then look to her, then make the choice to give it to her, and then that'll affect how you feel about that, because she just completely said thanks, but no thanks. Yeah, so right now it's a little too polite.
Okay.
Make sense? Yeah.
When I think about the Shumka Ukrainian dancers, I think about the real top-notch physical formation of how a person can get to if they practice their craft daily. Whereas the First Nations, it's more like a spiritual type of dance. So we're meshing the spiritual and the physical, and we're creating that beautiful energy of emotion, you know? So for me, it's a great honor to be a part of this project.
Well, it started out with Joe and I smashing heads together, because we had aspirations for two different stories, which were the same story, but they were two entirely different perspectives. At one point, it was actually quite clear, because we literally wrote two separate scripts on the same idea. And we looked at them and we're like, this is the same general thing, but where are these differences? Like, why does mine feel like this and why does yours feel like that? And we realized that was because there was the two perspectives we were trying to put into this show, so we had to continue to work harder to blend them together to make sure that everything had some space and some voice.
I remember asking for permission to a couple of people, including Barry, if I could maybe make some suggestions on how to make the show a little bit more, I guess, dance theater appropriate, but also, I guess, appropriate for Shumka, for the performers that we have in the company, and what we were looking for a story as well.
Doesn't matter which side. Probably this side is actually going to be a little easier. But as we switch, you guys switch just as one unit, kind of thing. You can do a seed bag grab at that point, but just so you don't end up like, so, you know what I mean? Let's just try that transition one more time, please. 3 walks and then a switch. Yes.
There was an original timeline that was very condensed. And it was even condensed by just your typical new creation standards, but especially for a collaboration between cultures that on paper we can say have so many crossovers, but then when we were trying to find people who knew one another, it was like, oh, maybe these aren't as connected as we thought. And we realized that we were not only talking about the relationship between these two communities, or these multiple communities, but actually building the relationship between these multiple communities, and that was going to take more groundwork.
Huge learning process right from the beginning. Our research and development phase was crazy to begin with. But truly, when it comes to really understanding each other, you really need to jump into each other's cultural experience. If there's something that is important to somebody that you're working with, and it's important that you engage with them in that, then, you know, there's no questions asked. We had to jump into it.
Here's some young men who have got such a lot of creative drive and the passion to have really strong viewpoints about what they see and what they would love to see happen. But both of them have this real core of respectfulness too. You know, they're very careful not to hurt each other, but they're also very careful to make their point that, no, I really see it this way, and I really see it that way. And watching them develop a language together has been very interesting because they're very different people. They're very different in how they present themselves to the world. You know, Joe is all about being a gentleman at all times, in all places. And Barry's all about being subversive in all times and all places.
I think we should sit
Separate?
Well, I was going to say together.
Okay.
We can talk about. We should. we need to
Okay, 3, 2, 1. We're gonna say
We're gonna sit
separate.
together.
Let's move Josh down.
Okay. Nice.
Oh, he's gonna get so
Is this you?
mad. This is me.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. He's gonna get so mad.
Oh yeah, he just been displaced. How does it feel? Ice. Cut that one, right? That's bad. And so that's what we're up against, is that we're given some timeline, we're given a date, we're given an expectation of what the show is going to look like. And then I was essentially asked to write that. And I did not. I wrote something quite different. And that was part of it, was just rattling the cage to figure out what was wrong with putting a show on stage that just showed the cute, fun interconnections between small instances of the communities over time, the historical story.
Dance.
So Ancestors and Elders is a story about two families, two matriarch trios, one Ukrainian and one Indigenous, who come together and start to share stories of their experience on this land. And the stories that answer questions like, why do we dance? Why did our ancestors dance? And how can we take that dance and bring it forward to share it with future generations?
Part of what we want to do with this story is show people, you know, where did these traditions come from? So we want to take away like the big sound and, you know, this sort of bright and energetic feeling that you would see at a performance and go back to a more traditional setting. So how are we going to do that on stage? We're going to change all the lighting, change some of the projections, some of the pictures that are being shown on stage, you know, go from something flashy and go into something a little bit more simple, something a little more traditional.
The larger question that hangs over us and the thing that underpins any of the work that we're doing is reminding ourselves that wherever you go, you're on the land. Whatever cultural interfaces there are that happen here between Ukrainian people and Indigenous people, between any groups of cultural people, are going to end up being flavored by this land. I think it's something I've overheard Shumka folks talking about over the months that I've been involved too, and I find that fascinating. The realization within the company that Ukrainian Shumka dance is Canadian. It's not Ukrainian. You go to Ukraine and you're very distinctly Canadian. And I would say, okay, there you go. That's it. That's the land. It's because you're here in this land. And you're here in this land that has, before you came along, grown up these people who have these ways of being. And those interactions between those people have impacted what Ukrainian identity means in Canada. And Ukrainians have impacted what Indigenous identity means in Canada.
It's distinctly a Canadian-Ukrainian story. How have we evolved and developed an identity as Canadian Ukrainians? That's the people that have had a relationship with the Indigenous people. It's not you know, the Ukrainian people proper. It's what the Ukrainian people brought to Canada and how they had to adapt in order to survive.
Whatever's not being washed will be vodka sprayed. So I have a bottle that's half vodka, half water. After every show, we'll go spray all the hats, girls' headpieces, and any footwear. So in Shumka's wardrobe room, we actually have to place on the vodka bottle, please do not drink, for wardrobe only, because it does seem to go missing. You can't really trust Ukrainians when there's a bottle of vodka kicking around somewhere.
How can we connect this fact that we've got two narratives of what this territory looks like? This Ukrainian settlement story, which focused on a new home, finding a new land, this open, vast area that needed to be worked and tilled. There was an opportunity for growth, and that growth could mean prosperity. That going in contrast to the Indigenous story in the same period of time of the imprisonment of her chiefs, the theft of the land, the enactment of the Indian Act, the fallout that came from that, which can still be seen everywhere. And was still quite misunderstood, especially following the Truth and Reconciliation Commission coming out just in previous years to this project happening, realizing just the gap in understanding between these two worldviews, that people are having trouble understanding one or the other because they couldn't put them together. And so that was I guess, the task, is how do we blast that open and take a look at that story.
Yeah, very different histories, but in such close proximity. You know, how can we have such different stories and such different perspectives when we are living on the same land so close?
Again, that's why we end up coming right back down to what do we know? What do these dancers physically know, and what can they say? Because when we were trying to go into the big picture story, the big historical story, it was landmines. I mean, we're constantly dealing with conflicting stories and everything, so trying to take them on, we wanted to deal with them. I think I wanted to deal with them more than Joe wanted to deal with them.
I refer to some of the lessons that we learned the hard way. I think a lot of it stemmed out of a couple of things. Barry mentioned that he was a little bit bullheaded at the beginning of the project.
Just leave it? Well, I mean, like, at this point, I'm
leave
worried.
it as is for now until we get
confirmation on who's going to be here.
confirmation on what the hell is up with.
That's not what I'm saying, is subbing them out.
There was a certain amount of political agenda, right? And admittedly, my own ignorance was the source of a lot of it as well. So it was a huge learning experience for me.
There was another moment as far as incorporating the dance portion, which actually made a lot of our story structure make more sense.
This is where I'm going to challenge everybody a little bit. Just kind of in their own, getting into their spot, right? Sammy. Adrian.
When we started to really get the dancers in the room and starting to see what they picked up and what they didn't, what parts of the story were they able to understand and what parts were they just like, okay, this guy's been talking for 5 minutes about sovereignty, what is that? Not only do we have to translate this through physical movement just conceptually, but we also have to be able to get dancers to understand what we're talking about. And not just a few dancers, a lot of dancers that are all going through their own process of learning some of this stuff. Some of them are in Indigenous studies in university, and some of them have never met an Indigenous person in their lives. But that's actually where things started to lift off. And that's where I think the idea of why do we dance as one of the core tenets of the show came into being, was directly from watching the dancers respond to this concept.
Awesome. So this run through today, we understand it's kind of like there might be some stress, there might be some anxiety surrounded it, but don't freak out about it too much. This is not intended to be a perfect dress rehearsal, all right? We're mainly wanting to watch it with all of the pieces sort of in place to see where's the stuff that we need the most to work on and stuff like that, so we can build our rehearsal schedule moving forwards. That's what we're gonna be focusing on kind of up here, all right? What I want you guys to focus on is how to make this show your own, okay? So some of these bits, you know, they've been touched on in rehearsal. So at this point, it's up to you guys to take that, run with it a little bit, all right? Add your own character, but not just for you, right? Add in your own little interactions with every single person that you make contact with on stage, right? That's important. That's the name of the game for this show, all right? Look at each other, enjoy each other, have fun with it, make it your own.
You guys are all part of our family now, so this is it.
Shumka. And Running Thunder. Okay, set up for the beginning of your show, please.
I would rather honor the good things as well as the bad and start the conversation from a place of understanding we have some common ground, understanding we have some common interest in building on that common ground, so that when we do get down to the really difficult stuff, we'll remember that we started with honoring each other.
What is the truth? What can we actually say that we're not going to get lambasted for making up some fantasy, some fairy tale? And that's always scary. And there's always perspectives that might think that something is going in the wrong direction. And as artists, that's a risk that we have to take, and we have to calculate it so that we're making sure that the communities that we're saying we're serving, we're actually serving. Yeah.
Is that a lighting cue?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's LX 92.5? Because I'm confused now as to what...
92.5.
Okay.
As far as how the show started to come together and all these voices coming into it, that was a much more complicated scenario than just finding people to dive in. When we had Anna Marie Sewell come in, there was very apprehensive. She was asking if, am I writing you a story? It sounds like you already have a story.
Part of my job was to poke those guys and go, what about this? You gonna touch that? What about that? You gonna touch that? And have them both go off and go, no, we can't touch that.
Inviting artists in and having a structure and not quite being clear about it took a few times where I had to step aside and be like, hey, I'm struggling. This is difficult. I'm inviting you into something that is hard. I don't have answers. I don't expect you to have answers, but I need help. And so there was a few moments where it was very much like that. Do we dig in hard and tell it right? are as right as we can with how ignorant we are? Or do we bail? We didn't bail.
Shumka's done collaborative work before. You know, we're not really, it's not a strange concept to us.
So sad.
We've had guest artists in tons of shows in the past. I don't know if it's ever been something that we've done to this extent. From myself and Barry collaborating as co-directors, to having multiple visual artists collaborating together, musicians of different backgrounds collaborating together to build the score. And same kind of thing, you know, lighting design, projection design, and costume design, all these elements kind of coming together. It's been a lot of coordination and a ton of work that I did not anticipate having from the beginning, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Once we had a storyline arc that we were satisfied with, we needed to move forward on the creation of the musical score for the show. We had been chatting with Carissa and Mark Klobuchak for a little bit already. We weren't honestly sure on what we wanted them to do with the show, and they weren't sure what that looked like as well.
But mostly, I think knowing the themes and where it's going to go will help us choose pieces that are kind of appropriate.
There was a really exciting moment in one of our early music workshops. It was actually one of the first times that we managed to get one of our musical directors from Morley, Anders Hunter, Yehe Nakota. Carissa had already been jamming out some ideas and was very excited about some things. We were buffoons and trying desperately to explain what we were trying to do with this project, and then it was at one point Carissa pulled out this little theme that she had.
And Anders had his flute there, and he just picked it up immediately.
Hearing essentially the same theme on both of them from two different artists was amazing.
For me, it was exciting. I remember being asked, well, we need a theme for the land. And the land theme is something that is ubiquitous throughout this entire show. And I'm very happy to say that that's something that I came up with. And I remember that process. I was trying to think of something that would sound distinctly Ukrainian, distinctly indigenous, and yet neither, but yet also both. We leaned really heavily on our Indigenous collaborators to learn more about powwow culture. So it was so amazing and wonderful to be able to dive deeper and understand the meaning behind things, or the form, or the structure, or what's actually going on from a musicological perspective, which is really interesting. And Anders is incredibly knowledgeable in that area and really gifted.
interestingly enough, as I learned more about some of the push-ups in the Indigenous music and the way the form was, and listened to more of the instruments and listened to people talk about the music. Yeah. Similarities started to naturally just come about.
How is it?
Tansi.
Tansi? That's how you say hello in Cree, man. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Tansi.
The way that the stories are told, they sort of stand on their own, and there are particular moments in the show where there's a moment of interaction. And in those moments, we've tried to kind of find a common ground. But for the most part, we let the story sort of unfold on its own.
Very early on, we had Lana Whiskey Jack and Svetlana Kravchuk working on the visual art. And the really neat part is that they've been collaborative artists together in Indigenous visual art, Ukrainian, Slavic visual art, things like that, since well before they were introduced to us. They brought that type of conversation that we needed to the table already.
We're doing visual design, so when people are going to be watching the show, the things that they're going to see projected, the elements and little details would be coming from us, from our paintings and drawings. And also we're doing a little bit of cultural consultation as well, so her Nehiyawik culture and my Ukrainian culture, we kind of worked together with the rest of the team.
It was really kind of easy to blend and work with both visuals from each culture because they are so land-based. So there's a lot of florals, a lot of, it's funny, a lot of primary colors that we can share in creating the visuals for it. So it was easy to work with Sereda and building some cross-cultural visual dialogue. It was a fun process to talk about and to learn more about one another's cultures and the connection to why we are doing what we're doing.
I feel really honored to be a part of that project, and I feel really humbled to be in that circle and to be able to do something and put in something that I usually do, like some art of my own that can become a part of something that is so much bigger with other people as well. So it's definitely a really happy moment.
We're taking baby steps, like we're collaborating on something that's never been done before. And this is what I've been telling people, we're breaking ground here. This is cutting edge collaboration with two different unique cultures. We're making history here. And I think that's the beautiful part of this whole collaboration, is that we're gonna be in the history books as two entities coming together and making something really beautiful.
Truly, everybody's voices coming together for this story is really what's been able to make it happen as quickly as it has. It feels more and more like a community that's built this show.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome, come on in. Thank you guys for coming, so nice to have you here. Welcome, this is CFWE, so come on in, boys, don't be shy. Here on Wind Speaker Radio, CFWE, and I am so excited right now because in the studio with me right now, live, we have the directors of Shumka's new production, Ancestors and Elders. Why do you think it was important for Shumka to collaborate with Indigenous people.
I think as far as the relationship goes, that was the most important thing to us. If we were going to accurately represent what these interactions were and what this relationship was, we needed to have people from both sides of the relationship.
To actually do it.
Yeah, and actually, you know, have the initial conversation, but as well as how do we keep the conversation moving forward.
7:30 p.m. at the Northern Alberta Jubilee Auditorium, and there is also a matinee on the 7th on Thursday. Now, the 10 o'clock show is sold out, but there is tickets available for the 1 p.m. show. We got more of country music's greatest variety coming up right after this. Yeah, boys! Good job, guys. That was awesome. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Those can go upstage out of the way as well.
The show would help people not turn their head when it comes to the word Indigenous, because there's a lot of negative stereotypes and negative views, and I think that we need to focus more on the positive. So yeah, I think this would be a good message for everybody.
What we need to do is see people. I mean, there's a lot of social barriers that get in the way of just creating the work, and we have to take really careful steps to make sure that we're doing that right.
There's two moments. We either cross over or we break out of circles. Which one do you want to move to 92.5, where it gets even more darker, and the Aurora painting?
We were already in 92.5.
That's when we were calling the evening painting, was with 92.5. So we still need a moment to call the patterns flowers, which would be with the bro hug.
Yes.
That would be 92.5. Or 92. Step in at any time here, because I'm lost.
I wish that every Ukrainian person and every Indigenous person could have this opportunity to come together in this way and learn about one another.
And I think it's also to relearn, because they were introduced long ago.
Yeah.
And then it got kind of forgotten.
Yeah.
And now we're saying, let's reintroduce it again.
Yeah.
We have lots to learn from each other.
So this, like this togetherness that we have in the show, this is what we need in the world.
I hope that people start to question themselves, their assumptions on all sides. I know I have. I came into this project with thinking that I knew more than some other people, thinking my perspective was a bit clearer because I had been given information and insight, and to learn to not wield that over people or lord it over people, but to actually use it to help the conversation. I was quite convinced that I was coming in here to blow some minds and drop some truth on people, and sometimes it can come from a negative place of trying to prove to people that they're actually in the wrong. And I learned that I need to listen more to where people are coming from before I start to dig in with my own politics and my own perspective.
I can't describe how my own perspective has changed throughout this whole process. You know, I knew the power of story to bring you into somebody else's perspective, but I didn't realize that it could truly welcome somebody into a whole new perspective and way of thinking. And that's honestly what I think I've gotten out of this.
The last show, and for me, it's like a reflection to see how far the process has come and to see how fast it went by. And I know it always happens like that, where you're like, you're just kind of dreading tech week because you know how long it's going to be. But then once you're in it, it's like it flashes by and you're like, oh, just try to absorb every moment. And that's a good reminder for me is like, especially with a big project like this, it's pretty much about the process. Like this is kind of the celebration and the part where we can actually like exhale and let things happen.
15 minutes to the top of the show. 15 minutes. Reminder that the house curtain is open.
You need those moments to laugh, and it's been great because, I mean, Shumka has their own kind of theater mannerism when they come in, and to be able to bring Running Thunder to it too. Like, they've been cracking jokes all week. We've had so many laughs with Bob and Cookham. Like, it's been so much fun. And again, like you said, one's about friendship, and you guys come in to have a conversation and have fun. So to be able to kind of come in and have that relief and knowing that whatever happens on stage happens, and we've worked hard at it, but we've also had fun along the way.
Thank you.
This has been a long journey, for sure. And I'm sure it's been a lot of new territory for everybody in here. I would just love to thank all of you so much. I mean, when we first started putting this thing together, we knew that it was going to take so many other voices, so many other stories, so many other personalities and senses of humor to get this thing moving, and that was true, and you guys did it. I myself, I mean, my background, I'm Ukrainian on my father's side, and that's a whole story. But I was raised from my mother, and this has been a great experience of bringing these things together. I was always trying to find my place in it, and it's been beautiful to be welcomed into both communities and to see everybody having such a great time. So kill it out there. You have a beautiful show, and you do an amazing job at it. So please.
You directed it. So.
Oh.
An idea is only as good as the team that it's entrusted to. When we started discussions about this show, we weren't sure for a long time about where it was going to go, how it was going to unfold. And a lot of times we waited until we had more voices coming to the table. We wanted to build our team and get those voices together as we build this story. And you know, I can honestly say that because we have such an amazing team of people gathered here together in this room, we have a story, we have an idea, we have a message that is truly amazing. So take a look around again and just acknowledge all of the people that have put their heart, put their voice, put their movement together into this story to make it as amazing as we all know that it can be.
For everybody who's joining us, you're now part of our Shumka family, so you're partaking in our age-old tradition.
I really enjoyed the show. Kind of sad in the residential part, just kind of grabbed my throat and wanted to cry. But yet everybody else saw it. So that's the part that I really like, that this is what happened, and we need to tell outsiders what happened to us. It wasn't just a beautiful Canada. You know, we had the break the second night, and I had my regalia on, and there was this non-native lady. She was having a hard time, so I put my hand out. I said, take my hand, and I helped her get up that step. And she just grabbed me, and she was crying. So I just kind of blew me away. And I don't know what was going on with her, but I just felt like I'm glad this is happening. I felt like it really touched my heart, and knowing that people are going to know what happened in our lives and to understand us as Native people.
I think it's really hard sometimes for us to accept that our ancestors were colonizers. I mean, the word colonialism is very ugly in our ears. And I think for those of us who aren't Anglo-Saxon, it's easy enough to say, well, that wasn't us. Our grandparents came afterwards. You know, we aren't the bad guys in this story. And I think ancestors and elders, in a very gentle, beautiful, evocative way, forces us to confront the fact that all of us who are not Indigenous are displacers. And I think what it does is it doesn't make us necessarily need to feel that the guilt of that should paralyze us. If we're going to move towards reconciliation, it can't just be about blaming people in the past, because that's easy. That's a cop-out to say, well, that happened 100 years ago, that happened 50 years ago. I'm not implicated in that. In the journey of reconciliation, we are all implicated in real time. And if a show like this can help us to understand that there is beauty in reconciliation, not just guilt and shame, but that there's power and rejuvenation in saying, this is our history, this is the truth of it, we have to acknowledge that truth and then build upon it, instead of hiding that truth away in a dark closet and willing it that it didn't happen or that it doesn't involve us, then we haven't made that step. Maybe it's a dance company that needs to teach us those steps.
this good earth, our home, for as long as we have breath, remains our care after death, when in memory, all that we honored in life remains etched like starlight on swaying grass, a shimmering map in song, in dance, in story. May the eyes who watch us now and the new generations who will